This story, Mary Goes Sorry, was in Alaska Quarterly Review in 1998, and the AQR has been important to me for a very long time. Um, just a very brief intro to the story. The characters' names and situations are all made up, but it does have roots in real life tragedy. And many of you will be familiar with a case that occurred in 1993. 3 little boys were murdered in West Memphis, Arkansas. Rumors went flying about satanic activity. It was just gossip, but it took hold. 3 teenage boys were wrongfully accused, arrested, tried, and convicted, and imprisoned, and despite no evidence, no real evidence. And they were in prison for 18 years, and then they were finally freed on the basis of new evidence. The tragic murders of the children remain unsolved. My story takes place in the immediate aftermath of the murders and the trials, so it's a story of the mid-1990s. When I wrote it, I had just moved to Memphis, and I had just read Fever, John Edgar Wideman's novella about a yellow fever epidemic in Philadelphia in 1793. And I saw parallels with the West Memphis case, the fear, the speculation that had been unleashed in the community by those murders, like a fever. And that's what this story is really about. The title, Mary Goes Sorry, is an ancient word that means a tale that contains both joy and sorrow. The subject matter does not sound like Valentine's Day, but there is love in the story. It's much too long to read in just 15 minutes, so I'll just read a few parts, and the sections in the story do stand alone. Mary Goes Sorry. It begins in an Arkansas courtroom, the trial of a young man for the deaths of 3 boys. It begins in late May, a year after the murders, on a day so hot that the air conditioning can't keep up with the sweat on the 17-year-old defendant's face. He has confessed, though his lawyer protests that the confession, signed in Sid's childlike scrawl, means nothing. Sid Treadway is mentally retarded, he says, and the police coerced him. Sid Treadway's long, scarred, dumbfounded face follows his lawyer's striding figure to the bench and back, and then his mild green eyes are distracted by a cicada thrumming on a courtroom windowsill. He recalls the last such insect he saw at his sister's house, which died loudly, clatteringly, in a dish of lemons. She had planned to use the lemons in a pie. She has not come to the courtroom. Only Sid's father is there, Big Sid, who, when his son was arrested, had burst into sobs like a child. There will be another trial for Sid's alleged conspirators, one of them widely regarded as the ringleader. Sid's trial is separate because he confessed, implicating the other 2. Sid Treadway helped slay 3 young boys and left them hogtied and drowning in a ditch, says the prosecutor. That's what the jury believes, swiftly convicting him, but that is just the prelude, the beginning. It begins again in the trial of Benedict James, the devil-worshipping, girlfriend-biting dropout who tutored his disciples, Sid Treadway and Robert Apt, in evil, so the prosecutor says, 6 weeks later in the same courtroom, who had targeted his 3 victims, their 8-year-old faces, one slyly mugging, another somber, a third the most lovable, expansively smiling, have decorated newspapers for months now. If the trial of Sid Treadway was easy, the trial of Benedict James and Robert Apt is as simple as calling Satan by his name. In Benedict's closet, there's nothing but black t-shirts and black pants, a police officer testifies, and his diary has poems he wrote to the devil. Benedict's pregnant girlfriend, Victorine Stark, sits every day in the back row. 16, red-haired, beautiful, she has pointed to teeth mark scars on her white neck for the benefit of photographers. She's carrying the child of the man she loves. This is her fate, she says. Her mother, 32 but looking 60, sits beside her embroidering the face of Jesus on a pillowcase. Nobody loves her, she tells reporters, and she'll be grandmother to the devil, but she has a sweet, lovely daughter. I want the best for my girl. Benedict, of the shaggy black hair, the fish belly white skin, the deeply scalloped underlip, gets sent to hell right there in the courtroom, as daily the trial ends with a curse. The father of one of the victims, who will himself be on trial within the year for stealing furniture from a neighbor's moving van, rushes Benedict in a ritual that the guards and the jury have come to enjoy. Burn in hell, murderer. You killed my little boy. The guards let him get within arm's length before gently tugging him out the door. Benedict sits unmoved, only his stomach moving fast with his breath, his t-shirt lifting up and down. The other defendant, Robert Apt, is vocal, whereas Benedict says nothing and does not take the stand. Robert Apt denies it all, but he gets confused. To the prosecuting attorney, he explodes, "Damn you, man, you're trying to mess me up." His lawyer tells the judge that he has advised him against taking the stand, but Robert Apt, age 16, insisted. "I'm innocent," he cries. Benedict James is 18, but looks 24 or 5. When the judge sentences him to death and asks if he has anything to say, he replies, "No, sir." Within 6 months, he's on television talking to a reporter. Yes, he says he did bite his girlfriend during sex, just a lick, and he demonstrates with his tongue while the reporter shudders. "I don't worship Satan. I'm a white witch, a Wiccan," he says. "I never said no wise else." He will not talk about the 3 murdered boys, whose faces flash on the TV screen as he is led handcuffed back to death row. Facing the camera, the reporter assures victims that he will be under lock and key until his execution. Victorine Stark, in the trailer she shares with her mother, cuddles her newborn and names him Malachi. "That means my messenger," she tells a reporter. On the day before the baby's birth, she saw a crow with a long piece of videotape in its beak. "It gave me hope," she says, her red hair spread out on the pillowcase with the Jesus face on it, while her mother spoons macaroni and cheese onto paper plates, inviting the reporter to stay for supper. "What do you think was on the videotape?" the reporter asks indulgently. "The one that the crow was carrying." Victorine laughs, a sad gurgle that has caught on lately among the girls at her school, who copy the laugh and the way she wears her plentiful hair, loose with a tiny braid encircling the crown of her head. The videotape would be something pretty. It don't have nothing to do, really, with the crow. It would show the future my baby will have. Rising from her narrow bed, she announces, "I've memorized something from the Bible, the book of Malachi. Bring you all the tithes into the storehouse, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven." The reporter, a young man whose instincts keep him at bay from her, but who has loved her violently since he stepped into her room and heard the Arkansas home honey in her voice, says, "That's beautiful." Victorine holds his gaze with her green eyes, undoes her flouncy white blouse, and nurses the baby. It's getting dark outside. Her mother hovers nearby to light candles that smell of patchouli oil. Victorine says, "I still love Benedict, no matter what." She nudges the baby from her breast to draw something from her pocket, a newsprint photo of Benedict bare-chested, his arms flung out in the shape of a cross. "That was took just a few days before he was arrested," she says. "Sid Treadway took it. You can have it. It's in my heart forever." The reporter turns it over and discovers a coupon for a casino in Tunica. Seafood buffet, half price. Victorine says, I can't wait till I'm old enough to go play those slots. I hope things turn out just fine for you, the reporter says. And you too, ma'am, to her mother. You got me thinking, Victorine says. He drives back to Memphis over the bridge with the scent of patchouli in his hair. For years afterward, while he entertains eligible young women in restaurants, he grows moody over his wine, imagines rescuing Victorine, taking her to the casinos that she dreams of. He tells himself she'll be old and fat by 19, but it's because of her that he does not marry until he's 40, and the memory of her has faded to an outline of Arkansas trailer and nursing infant. What of the abandoned cotton gin house where satanic rituals were rumored to occur, nicknamed Stonehenge, where word has it that Benedict used to sacrifice dogs, cats, rabbits, and chickens? The farmer who owns it burns the parts that will catch fire and tears down the rest. It had sat so long on the edge of his cotton field, a high-roofed shed. Not until after the arrests did it blossom with 5-point stars and 666, and the farmer himself scratched its dirt floor for animal bones and found none, although he did discover charred circles, which the police deemed ritualistic. Oh, somebody roasted marshmallows out there, he told police, while his wife said, Henry, that cult stuff is true. You just don't want to believe it. There were orgies going on out there. Do you think it was anybody we know? The police chief assures the public, your German shepherds are safe now. That's what those devil worshippers want, is German shepherds. The farmer resists even that. He doesn't know anyone who owns a German shepherd. Most everybody has hounds. He has a fat yellow lab that lolls in the grass and snaps at flies as he dismantles his troublesome old cotton shed. To the dog, he says, there were never any devil worship meetings here. You know it, and I know it. A 15-year-old girl named Crystal, in love with Robert Apt, although she hardly knows him. She just hopes he remembers her from school. Writes to him every night in the privacy of her room, a room bedecked with angel sun catchers and bowls of potpourri. She knows that sooner or later her mother will find out about the correspondence. Propped up on her pretty bed, she expects her mother to barge in, knock the clipboard and the pink mist stationery off the bed, and say, don't you fool with that killer, you hear me? Yet weeks pass, and Crystal mails the letters each morning at the mailbox near her school. Growing bolder, she displays a picture of Robert that she clipped from a yearbook. She sticks it in her mirror so she can look at his defiant face when she brushes her thin blonde hair. His eyes follow her movements as she tosses her head, brushing her hair as if it's tresses, a word she doesn't know how she knows. One night, her mother comes in with a basket of fresh clothes, spots the picture, and says, who's this? Crystal puts down her pen. It's who I love. Setting the laundry basket at the foot of the bed, her mother plucks the picture from the mirror. He's one of them three, she says. Crystal waits for outrage, but her mother chuckles. He could be in the church choir. Look at that striped tie and pressed shirt. I write to him every day, Crystal says, and sometimes I go to the prison and visit him. I'm almost grown. Don't try to stop me. How can anybody stop their kid from growing up? Her mother says, laying the picture gently on Crystal's dresser. It's just because he's in jail and will be until he dies that he seems like anything to you. Write to him all you want, but don't expect me to sew you any white gown for a jailbird wedding. I bet he's got sacks of letters from girls. Are you mad, Mama? Crystal asks, confused not by her mother's words, they're nearly what she expected, but by her tone. curiosity mixed with scorn and sadness. Your daddy thinks somebody else did it, but I think they got the right ones. The jury decided, and the judge just knew, her mother says. If your Romeo got out tomorrow, he wouldn't seem so hot. Here's your bras and jeans I washed for you. Oh, honey, he can't take you to the prom. Find somebody who can. I'm not going to any prom, Crystal says, glorying in the sacrifice. If she chose to, she could spend all afternoon with her hair in curlers, putting on makeup, and pulling on a dress with rhinestone straps, but she won't. She will take the bus to the prison on that fine spring day and get home late, smelling the apple blossoms in the air and hearing the distant music. There is talk among the juniors and seniors of holding the prom at the Holiday Inn, and her heart nearly bursts with longing to go. But no, she tells herself, I will not. Suit yourself, honey, her mother says. Kids think they have to rent limos now, for God's sake. Your daddy and I had crepe paper streamers strung up in the gym, and it was just as good. Did y'all drink back then? Did you go all the way? Crystal sits up straight. She has never dared to ask her mother these things. Of course we did. We still do. And I bet that shocks you more. Her mother laughs and leaves the room. Crystal sits on her bed, the writing paper scattered across her lap, remembering something, the old-fashioned way her grandmother used to address her mother, Crystal's mother. She used to call her daughter with a capital D. Crystal picks up her pen. The memory of her grandmother has awakened a whole chain of memories. Do you remember, she writes to Robert, as if they are 75 instead of 15 and 16. Do you remember the way our elementary school principal used to play chimes before he spoke over the intercom? She writes many other memories, but that's the only one Robert reads. He remembers the principal, and he hurls the letter to the floor of his cell with an oath. He still remembers a beating the guy gave him, the old wooden paddle kind, but he can't remember why. There's more to the story, but I'll pause there. Thank you very much.